Making music can be hard. Where do you start? How do you find the time? How do you tap into inspiration when you actually have the time to make music? How do we not fall into our old predictable habits and patterns? The 5-Minute Music Producer is a course that will give you a new activity every single day of the year that will help you figure out ways to start making music, how to find inspiration when it's time to make music, and how to break patterns with some new exercises. Professionals don't wait around for inspiration. They get started and then they find inspiration. But they have techniques for accessing that inspiration. The 5-Minute Music Producer will help you get started, break those patterns, and show you ways that you can store your inspiration for when it's time to work. Each day you'll get an email with a short exercise that will help you write music, build beats, create lyrics, tap into your own inspiration and ideas for songs, as well as analyze some other music to help get ideas from some of the greats. Get the first week of exercises for free of the 5-Minute Music Producer by going to brianfunk.com/5minutes. You can do anything for 5 minutes. Why not spend that time honing your craft to become a better musician, songwriter, and producer? Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Music Production Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Funk. On today's show, I have John, who makes music as MemoryBug. And John reached out to me just a couple weeks ago after doing the Jamuary challenge and shared some insights on what he'd been through it. He managed to do all 31 days, which is incredible. Congratulations for that. That's an accomplishment. And I think this is a great chance to talk to somebody that's been through the Jamuary challenge, share some of the lessons and just the struggles of making music and how you can overcome those as best you can. I think John did some really nice techniques within his writing that helped him get through that we'll talk about. So I want to welcome you to the show, John. Thank you for being here.
Yep. Hello, Brian. Yeah, thank you. It's great that you've accepted me to come on, and hopefully it'll give us a little insight onto what made me tick with all of this, and it might be useful to other people as well if they're thinking about doing it next year or any other sort of challenge, really.
Right. Yeah, I found what you had to say about it helpful. It reinforced some of the lessons I picked up on, and gave me some things to think about. And what I found especially impressive was that you said this was like really kind of like a big change for you to go 31 days making music. Do you want to talk a little bit about just like how you decided to go for it and brings us up to date?
Yeah. So really, if I start on the 1st of January, I got up and I thought, obviously I followed your podcast from day one, and so I knew about it from you and everything. And I just thought, did a cup of coffee and I was standing in the kitchen, and basically I just thought, well, is this, am I going to do anything or just go my normal way and get on with doing the washing and stuff and whatever? And I thought, well, am I being a bit of an idiot, really? What's the point of it? I can just play with my guitar at home and twiddle about anything. But I thought, no, I'll give it a go. And really, the thing was to say that I wanted to do it each day. That was the driving force, because I know, like a lot of people, I admit I'm one that can have a lot of enthusiasm and then lose that enthusiasm after a while. So anyway, that was the decision. And I thought, well, what can I do? I knew I didn't really want to just pick up a guitar and try and strum a few chords and everything. It didn't really appeal to me. So I thought, I just want to try and get something each day to spark me a little bit. And that first day, so I'm not going to go out. I just went in my garden. Where I am in London, you can see London in the distance. There's all the towers, etc. And just on my phone, I videoed a bit of that. And I brought that in, and I did have some other bits and pieces on my computer. When I see something interesting, if I'm out or whatever, I will record it, or something off the telly or whatever, and not even knowing what I wanted it for. So that really kind of gave me something to use it. I could use that, what I'd got in music. So basically, I did have something to work from, and I started doing that, just going into... I think it was Ableton. I was jumping about a bit with that and Reaper, but just kind of trying to get something to fit the mood of what I'd recorded, and I knew I didn't want anything too long, obviously because of the time involved. So that was the start of it, and I just went away and basically fiddled about to try and get a mood in what I was doing. And the funny thing was, from that, without really realizing it, that set me off on really. After that, I always wanted some visual side to it. If you look at all the days, there is something that's got a visual side to what I've put out. I think, surprisingly, it was just as enjoyable as the music for me, which I've never really considered myself a visual person. It's always been through my life the music, if you see what I mean. So
Yeah, I thought that was a good approach. Because sometimes when we go to make music, I know I love doing this. I love showing up and saying, "What's going to happen today?" What is the feeling? When is inspiration going to strike me? And a lot of times when I do that, I kind of am like aimlessly making music without much direction.
that's it. Yeah.
But having like the idea, the feeling, even just the kind of emotion I want to convey, I think helps a lot. And I like that you used visuals to come up with that.
Yeah. And I don't know why, but a lot of what I produce is quite sort of melancholy, kind of the music and the visuals. And I'm not that sort of person really, but for some reason that appeals to me to produce the music. And while, like yourself, was similar in how we've started in music and everything, so it's been really basically a band sort of thing. I do tend now to prefer working with it, almost using it like a paint or a palette that I'm not really thinking, oh, this is going to be the verse and this is going to be chorus. At the moment, maybe I will sort of think I want to get back into that, but at the moment I'm just saying I want that to suit that. And I suppose it's maybe more like if you're writing for a film or something, possibly, but that's how it went, to get moving on it. And then the next day, I dropped my daughter off somewhere, and I was coming across. I know you've been to London. I don't know if you went to like Greenwich and Blackheath. There's a big heath there, and I was just coming across there. But so each day it kind of heightened my senses a bit to try and have something to produce each evening. So I thought, what am I going to do today? And I thought, I'll just stop the car and I just word around with the phone, and then I thought, Blackheath. And then I was sort of thinking of Dick Turpin. That was like the highway, historically there was a lot of that going on there back in the sort of day. And so that kind of, then I went on and sort of got a few pictures off of Wikipedia and built that up. And although the music isn't really highwayman music, but it sort of sounded sparse and maybe a little bit, someone getting held up. But it was just something that I just needed to think, I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, let's do a 12 bar and try it, because I don't think, although you could do that, it wouldn't. I was doing this as much for me as that, well, it was for me because I didn't expect anyone even to look at them, but that, someone came in quite early and they were so constructive. It really helped me, with their comments and everything. And that was sort of helped to spur me on as well throughout it. So, yeah.
So that's pretty cool because you've put yourself then in that case in this sort of like sensitive mindset for musical ideas where you kind of, and I found the same thing too when I'm in this like, routine of writing and I know I got to come up with stuff. You sort of have this like extra sense now that's picking up and looking out
Very
for
true, yes.
inspiration and ideas.
Yeah. And maybe that's how some people, well, a lot of people are, I kind of need something. I can go off that tangent afterwards, but it just needs to be there. And then you've got something to work on, a bit like I suppose someone painting or whatever, you've started something, like they say, people can't look at a white bit of canvas and not get started, so it's that. And then, one of them, a couple of days later, I was sitting up, I was working, and I heard "Streets of Philadelphia."
Yeah, Bruce Springsteen.
Bruce Springsteen's, yeah,
Yeah.
and I thought, oh, this is. We'll get onto another little bit of a subject now, but I'll sort of nick that, the start of it, which I know, technically you shouldn't, but I disagree with that. I think if you're actually creating something with a small sample, I mean, that's gone on through history in music, hasn't it? So I'd never pinch a thing in real life, but I thought, no, that'll be good. I'll have that, and then the person in the song that he'd written about is in a sad situation and everything, and that just sort of got me thinking about, I wanted to do something around that, and I don't know if you came across it, but it was one I called Journey, and I'd watched about the Holocaust, and I was really in two minds whether I should even do anything around that, because after all, I suppose you could say it's what we're doing is entertainment in some way, but I decided I had a picture that I wanted to sort of put across, and so I built it around that opening drum beat, and it was important for me to keep the Bruce Springsteen's actual drums in it, rather than, I could have easily gone away and copied them and just used that, but I think that was the DNA of my thoughts and what I wanted across it. So it's a very short piece, but and I put a few words to it, and how I got that, my daughter was doing some work and she had Word, Microsoft Word, and the lady was reading out what she'd written so that she could check how it's going. I thought, I don't really want to put my voice on it like that, but I got the lady to read out my words. I put it into Word, and then I could put that into I think that was Reaper again, and obviously just fit it into what I was doing. So it's only under 2 minutes, but I was quite proud of that in a way that it was really something that came out of nothing, but it felt important to me that I'd done it, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty interesting that you pulled all these different influences just for that one piece, and then managed to work them all together.
Yeah.
But like you said earlier, you're not very melancholy in life, and I get that from you speaking to you.
Yes.
But sometimes it is fun to sort of embody those feelings and explore them, and a lot of times I feel almost like I'm a character when I'm doing music.
That's it. Yes. Yeah.
This sounds like that's something you do quite a lot with what you're.
Yeah, I mean, if I was braver and younger, whether, you can admire someone like David Bowie or, Alice Cooper or people after that that have, actually become a character. I think it mucks up their life sometimes as well at certain stages. But, it is a clever thing to use, especially if maybe you're not that confident in yourself. If you're the sort of the Gallagher brothers out of Oasis or whatever, I think you're quite confident to put yourself across. But you with although they could be really quite different. You don't know, do you?
Well, an interview that always stuck out with me, I think it was the guitar player, which I forget. I think that's Noel Gallagher,
that's right? Yes. Yeah.
So he was saying, he's like, if you want to be a rock star, specifically, he was saying, or whatever you want to be, he's like, be it.
Yeah.
Don't.
It,
You have to act the part, dress the part. No one's gonna come along and like crown you and make it official and turn you into it. He was very adamant about like acting the part. So I think they seem pretty genuine, because when you watch them, all the drama and excitement is half the fun of that band. But they also do seem to have that idea that you have to like kind of put the hat on and wear it.
Yes, yeah. And isn't that good as well, that you have people like that who you would think wouldn't have a sort of a sensitive side to them, but they can write such beautiful lyrics, really, in a lot of respects, and yet they'll be the ones having a tear up in a pub or something, you know. So,
Right.
I mean, I know that's gone on through history with a lot of writers as well, but you know, it's good. Like, I wonder if it's harder for bands like that now to come out. Even, you know, I know they were from the '90s or whatever, but there doesn't seem to be that outlet. There's fantastic bands, but I don't think they'll ever get that kind of opportunity now to become such a big player in music. You know?
Yeah,
Oh,
because I guess our
yeah, yeah,
places of receiving the music were so much more narrow. You know, you had the
that's it. Yeah,
radio, you had
yeah,
MTV, and
yeah,
there was just a few
that's it.
channels there. Now you
Yeah,
have
yeah,
every possible
yeah,
niche
mm,
imaginable, you know, for better or for worse, I guess.
yeah,
But yeah, I kind of think I agree that I don't know that we'll see like those big. We'll see the big,
mm,
huge rock stars, I think, but I don't think
yes,
quite
yeah.
on the
They wanted, yeah,
scale. And
yeah,
for the most part, there seems like we get a
yeah,
few now instead of like a little more.
yeah.
I guess
And
that
also,
that
yeah,
wealth has been spread out, not
yeah,
wealth
it's been
literally,
so,
but
yeah.
the
And
attention.
also, whether the people that want to be in that area maybe might not always have the genuine, you know, I shouldn't be like sound like an old fart, yeah, but love, you know, like you say, like the Beatles or the Rolling Stones just wanted to play blues in clubs or whatever, so they were taken along with their skill. The same with the Beatles are in, you know, like in the cavern, and that's what they wanted to do, and
Mm,
they people saw their talent. It was brought through. So I think sometimes I think the cart goes before the horse now, where people want to be
sure.
something, right, and they might think, well, if I can't be a musician, I'll be this or I'll be that. And I think the true people that, you know, like even doing this Jamuary, you know, you see such talent just in that area. And to be fair, the people are doing it just for the love of the music. I don't think they've got any great plans other than just to produce that music. And I think that's a good thing about, you know, that we're going back to sort of Victorian times in a sense that people just used to have a piano, didn't they, in their
Mm.
front room, and people used to play music for the love of it. That's all there is to it. So in a way, that's what's the great thing about the technology that we've got now, that people can do that and express themselves if they want to.
Yeah, there's definitely like a change, like a shift, I guess, that's happened where maybe it's just a big cultural thing, but just this
Mm,
idea of doing something for the sake of doing it, just
yes,
enjoying it. I mean,
yes,
one of the
yeah,
beautiful things
yeah,
about when I pick up my acoustic guitar, for
mm,
instance, I
hmm,
don't have to plug it in, I don't have to turn it on. All right,
that's
I
it,
have to
yeah.
tune it. But other than that,
Mm,
it's almost like magic when I think about it compared to
yes,
the computer.
yeah,
And it just
yeah,
makes a sound and then it's gone. And
yes.
if you're
And
just playing that guitar, that's the
mm,
only real point in doing it, is to just
yes,
have that moment
yeah,
with it.
yeah. And you're not even trying, I'm not saying to impress, you know, it just flows out of what you're doing. But obviously that's a start to, I'm sure, to a lot of things where you think, oh, that was good. I'll,
Yeah.
I'll have to get that on down on and then work on it. So yeah, it is a great thing. And I found, like, I know people, you know, everyone's been in the same boat, haven't they, with COVID and what have you, and to varying degrees and everything. So I think I almost thought, because my family have grown up now and everything, but you know, music always just for years didn't take it from a backseat. You just sort of give up on it, really. And I've also had guitars hanging about, you know, but now I just think, yes, you've got to enjoy the actual process of doing. That's what it's about as much. And you
Mm.
know, doing this was fantastic. It took me quite a long time, and really my normal life went out the window doing the January, because I would say, you know, it was, if if I had the time, I would do 6 or 7 hours, you know, just doing on one. But I was trying to do the visuals as well. But you know, when you finished it, you felt that you'd accomplished something that and that hours had just flown by, and it was it was really good. And I sort of said, well, I must do something each day, but without having that kind of little stick prodding you, I've fallen by. And that, you find, oh, I didn't do anything yesterday or the day before. I think you've really got to kind of focus your mind to do a little bit each day if you can.
Something happens to us when we accomplish something. There must be some neuroscience that shows chemicals in the brain, which I'm not qualified to speak about right now.
No.
But there is, like you said, that satisfaction, and just having that every single day, I found really motivating. And there were definitely days I was sick for, I don't know, 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
And even though I was sick, I found a way to do something with kind of minimal effort. And I was so glad that I didn't let it win.
Yeah.
Because I had the excuse,
Yes.
I could have said, I don't feel good. And so, but powering through that, even though those probably weren't the days I look back on as my better days, but it was like, oh, at least I did something. At least I did something. And
you're most probably more, sort of proud of those days as well, because that's where you were at your lowest, sort of to get ahead and do something, and just sitting there. And luckily now, you can sit with a laptop basically, can't you? And produce something. You don't have to sort of drag yourself away to a studio or anything. So, and it's great. It is you should be proud, especially if you're. And I know, you've got a busy lifestyle, haven't you? So it's not something that you can just devote a month to just working on it. And it's certainly.
It's an
I got more out of
feeling.
it. Yeah, I got more out of it than I thought I would. I started thinking, I just want to prove to myself that I can do that, and that's all that matters. But even what we've touched on just now, you do feel, yes, I've achieved something, and maybe, we know what the internet's like. Someone might say it's a load of old rubbish, and maybe it is, but that's art, isn't it?
Sure.
Everyone's got their views of stuff. So I could see something, well, why do you need to put it out there? But I think it's almost something in you that just says, well, you've done something. And I played over the years sort of in bands and doing stuff, and not for maybe 10 years or so. And, when you do a gig, as you know, even you might be nervous something beforehand, but after it's a bit like that buzz you get, don't you, that you've achieved something. And it is something, people have it for other things, don't they? Sport or whatever. It's a positive thing to have rather than, a negative. You could get it from something else, couldn't you?
Sure, yeah. Well, I think it's easy to, it can be easier to fill your life with those types of things. Where you get just kind of the thrill, drinking, drugs, whatever. But putting yourself through that challenge and making it through on the other side it's empowering, and I don't think I could understand what do you need to share it for question could be this kind of like, are you flexing for everybody to see? But I think in the case of Jamuary, it's so much about the community and the support, and seeing the other people doing it and saying okay, well, I always think of like a class an exercise class or something when you're working out and you feel tired and you don't know if you're going to make it, but you look next to you and they're still going and they're tired too and they're having trouble, and it keeps you going. You kind of learn that you have more in you than you may have originally thought. And having that accomplishment every day. I've heard of people that make their beds in the morning every day just so I did that today. I did one thing and it gives you a good start. I don't always make my bed, but having some sort of victory early in the day does propel you and give you like a little motivation and confidence.
And going, one of the comments I got was someone said it's great. It's not, people aren't doing say, oh, look at this or look at that. It is a community, and really that's your almost your ticket to that community producing something. Because prior to this, all I've ever done is really been looking at things and not joining in on anything on the internet with music or anything. So I just felt if I don't do this now, I'll never will, and you know, I just thought just got to play it. You know, to use the term, play it by ear, really, you know, and just see what happens. And that's why I thought, you know, when I'd done it, I'd send to you as well, because I thought, well, this is part of the journey, and I might not hear anything. I'm sure I was sure I would hear, even if say thank you, because from how you deal with people, but you know, so I was surprised you came back and said, yeah, that's something that you'd like to follow. And so I just think it was meant to be in a way that I should just come on to say about how I, you know, approached it or whatever. You know, it's a sort of a weird thing, really. It's almost like a parallel life that's gone on with this little thing, and it will just fade away most probably pretty quickly as well. But none of this, you know, this time last year, I was just sitting at home doing nothing really in music or anything. So it's been brilliant.
It is so easy to consume with the internet. You know, there's no end to it anymore. You used to listen to your record collection and then you were done. But that won't ever happen again.
No.
But to step up and participate, you know, and be part of that it's nice, and it's great to feel like you're involved. And I love hearing from anybody that goes through this, just because there's so much to learn from. And I'm, you know, for all the time I spend making music and doing it, I'm still perplexed and fascinated when it actually works and when things happen well. So I'm just always interested in hearing, like, how did you do it? How did you manage to make this happen? You know?
Well, I'm like that as well with, you know, I do love the technology side of why things happen. And that's why, I know we're going, but the Beatles are such a brilliant example of that, using what they had at their time. And okay, they got ideas from other areas of the arts, but, you know, they were using samples basically, you know, on tracks like Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite, that was all put together, and fairground organs and stuff, you know. So they could do, we can do that now relatively simply if you've got the urge to do it. But to actually to be able to sort of see, it's not just they could sit there, and they were playing in the Cavern or in Hamburg for 16 hours a day or whatever. So they could go on playing rock and roll for the rest of their lives, really. But they choose to, I don't know, blow bubbles into a cup or whatever for Yellow Submarine, you know. So, and you've got George Harrison, one of the greatest guitarists. But, you know, that's what it's all about, I think, with music or anything. If I go looking at paintings, I can really appreciate a Constable or whatever, you know, or you can see someone's painting and it's like more or less like a photo. That's fantastic. But I kind of find the ones more interesting if it's something, you know, like a Jackson Pollock or something, why have they done that and what was the reasoning? And I think music is like that as well. I tend to like the bands that are, you know, got something a little bit left field maybe.
I've always kind of been drawn more towards the, I guess it's the song or the idea, the structure, the risk of it. There is something amazing about like virtuosity and hearing people play like incredibly, but that can never really be, I guess, the whole story for me.
Actually, I just thought of something like that, which is look at Phil Collins in The Air Tonight. that song, and
Yeah.
obviously everyone knows the big drums coming in.
Right.
And so he's the best at the time, I suppose, one of the best drummers in the world, playing with Genesis, and there's another jazz lot he worked with, I can't remember now, but so we all know he can play the drums, but the start of that is like a little organ sound drum box, isn't it? But the mood it builds, it's like someone could have just pressed that on your dad's organ. It starts, and
Right.
then how the keyboards come in all kind of quite. So he didn't think, well, I'm the best, I'm going to play a great drum beat here. He was just letting this sort of almost toy drum box come in and build the song, and that's what is great. It's fantastic to have the tools available and the skills, but when to use them and when to kind of take your foot off the gas a bit, really, and go for something else.
Yeah, well, in that song in particular, it's a very like dark place he's writing from. I think one of the lines is, "If you were drowning, I wouldn't lend a hand."
Yes,
It's like, woo. But like that dark, alone, isolated mood wouldn't happen if he was playing some like really awesome, intricate drum beat.
Yes, yeah.
It would take away,
so,
and then that big do 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 do. It wouldn't be so big if that other part wasn't so small. And
yeah, I know you said about that before, isn't it? Something's only big because something else is small, and and again, not saying, because it's funny how sometimes people's very early stuff, to me, is some of their best stuff, but maybe that's because of what I like. I tended to think it went more kind of mainstream, but a song like that was perfect, and but, yeah, it's so that's the sort of thing where for me, saying like, if I went and thought, I shouldn't be doing this as a musician, because, well, I'm not that great anyway, but it wasn't. That's how I didn't approach the Jamuary. I didn't approach it in that way. It was like, I just want to get from A to B, and what sounds I can use, and whatever, and everyone. I suppose then you do get, everyone's going to be different in that way. So that's what it's all about, really.
I think that's an important way to approach it in general. Without thinking too hard about that stuff. And I find myself, I wind up getting in ruts when I start worrying about if what I'm playing is complex enough or intelligent enough, or if it's been done before. When I start worrying about that stuff, I inevitably hit some sort of roadblock. The nice thing about the Jamuary exercise is that you almost don't have time to go there, because most of the days I'm really squeezing it in. Often I've procrastinated till about the 11th hour. So I've done all my dishes, I've vacuumed everything that didn't need to be vacuumed. And now I have to do it. I don't have a lot of time. So we don't have time to worry about that stuff.
No.
I get that feeling too a lot playing with other people, where if it's the right group of people where you're comfortable with them, when you're just kind of jamming, making stuff up, where you just need to come up with something that everyone can play on.
That's it,
and not worrying about if it's too complicated. Sometimes I'll sit on the drums and I just play a simple beat. Like, here's something for you guys to work on. If I'm doing something in 7/8 and which I would struggle with anyway on the drums, but it would just take too much time and fumbling for people to get onto.
Sometimes like that, when you just set up or something. I mean, again, it's been a few years, but like the drummer might just be doing something, and then if you're playing the bass, just some riff, and people come in, and obviously, I'm stating the obvious, but I mean, there must be great songs written in that way. But it's quite surprising. The sum is far greater than the parts, you know, that
Right.
it almost takes a life of its own. And have you ever been in a situation where everyone changes as well at the same time almost? It's almost like a kind of, what do you call it, you know, a sixth sense. Everyone goes into a different chord or something. It's strange. I suppose it's just if you played together for quite a while, you start to read each other's minds in that respect.
Yeah, that definitely, there's something to be said. You like learn each other's language, and
Yeah.
you start to like anticipate what they're going to do. And you can't be too in your head for those types of things,
No.
because otherwise you're going to question yourself, and it rubs off on the other people. You know,
Yes.
I've definitely been in situations playing with people where it was just like so mental and uncomfortable. And they might be great musicians,
Yes.
but it's such a mind
that-
game. This whole thing is more than
yeah,
anything,
it
I
is.
think, a mind game.
That reminds me of something as well. You know, in the Beatles film, the documentary,
Get Back,
when
yeah.
Ringo is doing, he's going to do Octopus's Garden, wasn't it, on the piano, you know, and George Harrison comes over. I don't know if you remember that, and he's got his acoustic guitar. Now, George Harrison could have said, "Oh, do this, do that," but he's just saying, "I play, you know, C, A, Mi, F." Yeah, he's playing the most basic things to encourage Ringo with what he's doing, and you know that's fantastic to see. You know that's like a mate encouraging someone
Yeah.
and not making them feel, well, anyone could do that. Do you know what I mean? It was
Right.
And look at the song that they ended up with through
Yeah.
it.
That's a great one.
You know, it's a basic kind of chord sequence, but it's that wouldn't have existed, I don't think, without the encouragement that George gave, as far as I could see in that. And it's really shows, you know, it's not even being musicians, it's being mates, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
And
That is a beautiful moment. And there's so many of those in that documentary sprinkled in where you just see them helping each other and supporting each other. And even if they're sort of questioning what they're doing, it's because they're so supportive and helpful, it's only seen as a positive, where they take it to heart instead of take it as an attack. And sure, like, let Ringo write that song with basic, simple chords. I mean, how many great songs have basic, simple chords?
well, that's it. Yes, yeah.
And
Yeah,
you're
I mean,
so
that's it.
right.
I'm not knocking. He's the court, you know. Like I say,
Oh, yeah.
that's what. But I'm saying, like, George was coming to him saying, "Yeah, you know, this will work and everything." And it was, it's just one little thing, but I suppose we all pick up on different things. And the other things, like, and I'm sure, like in all band situations, like if you've got a gig coming up, and even the last one, you sound like crap. You think, well, this. But when they went on that roof, it was like a complete, you know, bang. You know, and it didn't sound, you know, there's just something when they knew they had to turn it on.
Right.
They done it, and you could tell that that's 4 people. Even then, that was 4 people against the rest of the world. And I suppose that's at that time. That would have been the happiest they were together when they're on the stage, weren't they? Really, and it's great. It was a really good eye opener.
Yeah, that sort of, I think it happened too, that focus came in when Billy Preston showed up as well.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And they sort of said, okay, well, let's straighten up a little bit because we have a guest today. You know, like kind of the way you clean your house a little bit.
Yeah.
You suddenly see the mess in the corner that you've left for the last few weeks when a guest is coming.
And again, like we were just saying about that, how he fitted in. And sometimes, you know, it's not even what he was playing as a musician. I think, as you're saying, you know, it's just that he's there, and it kind of just gelled them a little bit more to say, well, we got to show what we can do as well, you know.
Yeah.
They respected it. I think he went back, didn't he, to Hamburg days? I'm sure he was involved there with some other people.
I think the situation was he was playing for Little Richard when the Beatles were opening for him. So it was like role reversal, you know, like they were just these no-name Beatles, and there's Billy Preston with Little Richard. And then, as
Yeah.
the Get Back documentary comes around, now they're the Beatles, all capitals.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
he's
But
such an incredible player. But I think you're right. I think his energy is just as important.
yeah.
That positivity, he's smiling the whole time and he's open
Yes,
to it,
yeah.
and they're open to him.
Yeah.
That allows the magic to happen. If it was,
Yeah.
like in that cold, that was it Twickenham, the big
Yes, yeah,
TV
the
studio.
studios, yeah.
That had the colder vibe.
Yeah.
But if that was, it only worked really because they were pretty positive and open with each other.
Yes, yeah.
But if,
But I think they got far more done, didn't they, when they moved to
yeah,
to
and they sort of had to iron out
Savile
some
Row
of
and
the wrinkles with
Yeah.
George actually left the band at one point. So that was, they almost needed to, sometimes you need to go through that and address issues and
yeah.
reestablish
that was
the relationship.
that was a good walkout as well, though, wasn't it, when he says, "Oh no, I'll see you around. I'll see you in the clubs or something."
Yeah.
But it's sad. That's it. I think you think somewhat a band like that, it's almost like it's on a different level to how anyone would have a band, but it's not really, is it? It's still for mates in their, as far as they were concerned. That's how they started. I know they at different times, but they all knew each other, and you could still see that was the situation. And God, even if you go on, if you went with your best mates. If you had to stay with them for 3 years, it's nearly 10 years, I suppose. It wasn't very long, was it, the Beatles, from start to finish? But you'd get fed up with anyone, wouldn't you, if you're living in their pocket for all that time?
Oh, so in such an incredibly unusual lifestyle and situation.
Yeah.
But that was always what I loved about the Beatles. When I was in high school when I first started getting interested in the Beatles, and then started reading the books and watching the anthology series that came out in the 90s.
Yeah.
I always felt like they were kind of like me and my friends. They were a couple guys that were into playing music and fooling around and having a fun time. And that's always what drew me into them, is it felt like they felt like your friends. They felt like regular guys.
Yeah.
And I always kind of hated all the talk about the breakup and the tension and John and Paul and whatever. But watching Get Back really showed that they're friends at the heart of it, and they care for each other, and they love playing music with each other.
Yeah.
And sure, things got complicated, but that wasn't the story. Unfortunately, I think in the past that became the story of Let It Be and that whole
sells
experience.
papers, didn't it?
Yeah, sure. It fills the tabloids. That's interesting. Salacious headlines.
Yeah.
But even as you mentioned before, I think we started talking, they had some fun reading those headlines themselves.
Yes,
in the documentary. Beetle Paul.
No, you could see the sense of humour was never lost, was it?
No.
That's it. So that's the sort of thing, I don't know, sort of gone off a bit, but saying like how music, you never, sometimes when you see things on YouTube about actual technique and everything, you think, God, what am I doing? Why am I even trying to do this? Because, about the Mixolydian scale or anything. But you didn't hear a lot of that with them, did you, really? It was just...
Oh, no.
That's what music's about. It's something that you can... It's like, you're an English teacher, aren't you? So obviously everything about what adverbs, adjectives, and everything. What they call.
Please don't hold me to that standard.
No, but you see what I mean.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm just speaking because I've learned it, and basically that's how I picked up music. Really, I've just picked up as I've gone along, and then you get little breakthroughs all the way along, don't you? You think, oh yeah, that's how that worked, and how that worked. I mean, sort of like, well, I remember with the the piano, when you go dung 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 dung, and then suddenly, for some reason, just going and holding the notes down and getting a chord, and you can say, oh, that's C, and you think, what's that C? And work it. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, you writing the letters on the keyboard so that it's C, D, E, and then you say, well, if that's C and then that's F, and it sounds stupid now, but then you think, I didn't sort of realise for a while until someone plays a C on a guitar as a chord, it's the same as on a piano. I thought it was some two different worlds that didn't really get to learn completely different. And it's, so that's, and then you just sort of build on that basically. And I'd like to obviously kind of be a lot more knowledgeable in music, but it's something that, again, it's a lot of, you need to devote a lot of time to, I think, and it's great if you're a kid to follow that route, definitely, if you can. And,
I know Paul McCartney has said, he doesn't read music, and he has sort of shied away from really studying it too much because he's afraid it would lose some of the magic. Now,
yes,
I think watching
point,
Get Back, you realize that he has, he's probably on some level gifted, and not only that, but he has worked at it incredibly hard for his whole life. So it really comes through that he has he has something special. But I love that he still kind of reserves a little bit of that like mystique and magic, and because we can overanalyze things to death, and and that's when I find myself getting stuck in writer's block, is when I start saying this isn't complicated enough. I should probably substitute this chord and maybe insert a few odd notes and change the time. Then I'm thinking like I'm engineer, mathematical, and I'm out of the emotional, creative zone, and it always derails me.
Well, when he was doing, was it the Long and Winding Road, on the piano? I mean, that was like, that's not rough. I don't know all the stuff, but it's sort of like, to me, like Chopin or so. How he was playing it, you could hear all the intricate melodies. Yeah, he would do something like Helter Skelter, which was basically punk before punk, wasn't it? If you see what I mean, it was. So is knowing kind of what you want to get out of the song, and not having to say, yes, I know all that, but I just want to play this like I can hardly play the guitar and have it feeding back and everything, and and they're both brilliant songs in their different ways.
Yeah. Well, he knows how to tap into that emotional energy. Yeah. I think Helter Skelter, I've read, was written after he heard about The Who, right? The Who said, I think Pete Townsend said, we wrote the heaviest song we ever heard. It might have been like We Won't Get Fooled Again or something. Yeah. I forget which song he was talking about, but before Paul even heard it, he's like, well, I want to make the heaviest song now. And then, Helter Skelter's what happened. So just it kind of brings me back almost to like your thought of getting that feeling and that emotion in place, which you used a lot of visuals for. It could really be anything that takes you there, but having that as a starting point is big.
Yeah. And even after all these years, it's something I'd written a few bits and pieces, but nothing much, but I'd never really kind of thought that way. It was almost like it just come out of that first day, and that was a way to kind of get me through it, if you know what I mean. I thought, if I just wake up and think I've got to do one today, and what should I do? Just play a chord, I don't think I could have got there. And believe me, like I think you said earlier, there was times I thought, I'm not going to get this one done. I dug myself so much into a hole halfway through, but then suddenly some little thing will just say, "Oh yeah, that'll get me out again." So of course, some of them it's not for me to say whether they're rubbish or good or anything, but it's I'm proud that I produced something that I could put out each day. That was something, and an idea like that one that I thought worked well was I called it no, I can't remember what it's called now. But anyway, I was on a train and I shouldn't really do it, but there's this fella going on a bit who's on his phone, and I thought I'll tape him, like record him on the phone, because he was really interesting, like he was a little bit, but away with the fairies sort of thing, but he was good as gold, and I thought I'm just gonna use that, and you actually can't hear it in, but then he started playing Pink Floyd Comfortably Numb on his phone really loud, so I hope Pink Floyd don't come after me if they can hear it in it. But so I thought I'm going to just use everything from the phone journey, and the rhythm, such as it is the train noise, the wheels going over the track, so I kind of cut them up to give a rhythm. It goes, and you can hear the train if you listen to it, and so I'd got as far as that, and I've got his sort of repeating a few bits and everything. But I just felt, my rule, I have to break my rule here. It wouldn't work. So I just sort of got a synth, VST synth, and just a very simple kind of droney sound, throbbing, and I was just going up like kind of semitone, because I wanted to kind of get a sort of tension thing, and it just really fitted so well, and it made it, I think, one of the best things I did, if you know what I mean. And it was just sort of having one rule, but then slightly saying, well, sometimes you've got to break them, because otherwise you're going to end up with nothing. And so
That's
that would never
all music, right? Like even just all the theory, all the scales. I'm playing in C major. That's my rule. But every once in a while, it's nice to throw in like an F minor or some other chord that doesn't belong.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great approach, to have some rules, some limitations or restrictions. But then if you feel the music is calling for something else, like break the rule. Don't be afraid to. I think you try to stay within those confines, but if you see, you got to follow the music too.
Yeah.
So the rules and the limitations for me give me like a place to focus on, and I almost always come out better when I have those in place.
Yes.
But then once in a while you say, oh, but this song could sure use this, and let's just do it. Let's have fun.
Yeah. No, it's really what you're saying. And that's the sort of thing, especially nowadays, we've got so much, haven't we? Just, years ago, you would have been limited maybe to the actual gear you've got and everything. I think it's just having a sort of little plan in your head before you start work sometimes.
I'd like to have a target to fire my arrow at, but I don't care if I hit the target. There's a lot of other things around the target, and if I hit anything...
I think Brian Eno said something like that. He said I fire my arrow, and he goes, then wherever it lands, I put the target round it, so I always hit the bullseye with whatever I'm doing. Which is, I mean, he's a great character as well, isn't he? When you think what he's been involved with and stuff, and that I'm very into Bowie as well, and like the Berlin trilogy of albums. I know they weren't all recorded in Berlin, but where it was he was involved with it. I know still Tony Visconti was a very big part as well, but that was very experimental how they were working. And like Bowie's again, like the Beatles or whatever, he could have just kept going, but he chose to move away from being this glam superstar, and for various reasons. But when you read about how those tracks were produced, it's really fantastic. Like the backing tracks were done in more 3 or 4 days, really, and then something like Heroes was just the chords to start with, and the words. I think it was going to be an instrumental right up to quite late on in the process, and suddenly it changes and becomes one of the biggest songs known in the world. Just by those putting the final touches to it. And it wasn't a big hit, I don't think, anyway, to start with. It's, you know, there's so many songs in our lives, isn't there, that'll be remembered, I'm sure, for hundreds of years. And it must be great to produce one of those along the way somewhere.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
And you're right, though. Like, there are probably people that wanted, you know, your David Bowies, your Beatles, to just keep doing what you're doing. You know, keep making those paychecks for us, and it's working. No reason to fix it. But that's, you know, that's where the artists sort of show themselves, and they say, you know, that's not what I'm looking to do. I thought even in your Jamuaries, you covered a lot of ground musically. You've explored a lot of different sounds and feelings. And
I that was part of what I wanted to do. I didn't want, you know, to limit myself to kind of what I would have been more comfortable with maybe doing. I could have just sort of set up a drum beat, and there's only one song where I've got guitar and bass on it, you know, real guitar, because, and also that was more to do as well with the logistics of trying to get it done every night. You know, if you've got your computer and a little keyboard, you know, you can kind of work pretty quick.
You know, to set up those microphones
and stuff, and you know, tuning up. So but I definitely want. I want to. I've got ideas. I want to keep going with it, and I've sort of got some ideas where maybe getting some of them have got quite nice little kind of, I don't want to be sort of artified, but you know, sort of motifs in them that I think could work if you brought them out and maybe make it into a longer piece, so that it's kind of the best bits that come out, you know, which I was happy with. But yeah, I like a couple of things. Should say, you know, technically I can, as you might imagine, the main thing I use is my ears. I need to work more on kind of trying to use the tools better, but that's because of the time as well. But there's some, I use the BB's Spitfire. Do you know Spitfire Labs series, which is free? They're excellent for that.
Beautiful
you know,
sounds.
So there's a lot of the piano I've used a lot on it, and the strings, and
is there
I think
maybe like a Brian Eno piano on there now?
There could be.
I think something cool like that anyway.
Yeah, this was it's
somebody's
called a soft
piano.
Yeah,
there's a soft piano, but I think they made a new one. I think it's Brian Eno's piano. I'm gonna, you know, while we're talking, I'll just type that in. But somebody's piano, and it's pretty cool. I haven't downloaded it yet, but
So that was it, and then a couple of sort of synths, and then I've been at the. I was kind of looking at some of the other people doing stuff. I've treated myself to a Behringer. Is it Behringer Crave? It's a little synth. So I've got sort of knobs to twiddle with now a bit more, and that'll be good to come out of the box a bit more. You know, that's what I want to do really. Try and use more live instruments. Funny enough, one of the things I did on there was I thought I got my very first instrument, which is a recorder, you know, like the little flute. In England, when you're at school, when you're a kid, you used to...
Oh, yeah, the recorder.
Yeah, you play that,
we did that, I think, in the second grade.
So I got that, and it was so it was quite sort of brought back a lot of memories, you know, because of my parents and everything not here, and I can remember even getting it. I must be about 6 or 7, and that was a very long time ago. And you know, just so that's on one of the tracks. I thought I wanted to have that in it, and so you know, just sitting there thinking, who would have thought that thing was what I started with, and now you're sitting here with a computer, and you know how music has changed in a relatively short period of time, isn't it? In the history of music, it's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, to bring it back to the Beatles,
Yeah.
Fool on a Hill has the recorder in it.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and when I realized that, I was like, oh my God, he used the
Yeah.
recorder. Like it
Yeah.
kind of blew
Yeah.
my mind because up until
Yeah.
that point, the recorder was the toy thing they gave you when you were
Yes.
6 or 7.
That's it.
So I
Yeah.
started searching the house to see if I could find it, and we must have thrown it out. But
Yeah.
I was so
Well,
excited by that and inspired
yeah.
that
Well, it won't cost you much to get another one now.
no,
You can.
it'll cost me
But
learning
is
how to
it?
play it again.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty. Well, again, like that, I only kept it very simple, like 3 or 4 notes, because I didn't want to
Yeah.
make it too complex to put things around it, and but I think it's a little bit out of tune actually, but it works okay, with the rest of the track. But yeah, but that's been used on a few. I think Peter Gabriel used it on Salisbury Hill, and yeah, it crops up from time to time on quite a few songs,
That's
here and
neat.
there. But that's good, like again, why it come in my head. That would never have come in my head if I wasn't doing the Jamuary
Yeah.
thing, just thinking, well, let's try to do something different each day. Well, not different, but do you know what I mean? Just something, just a little bit to
Well, that's
get
one
you
of the
moving.
benefits of doing it so consistently is you can have a day
Yeah.
where you're like, let's just try something new. Let's fool
Yes,
around.
yeah.
Because it's
Yeah.
not so precious anymore because you're going to do
No.
another one tomorrow. You just did a whole bunch and
Yeah.
let's take a risk.
Yeah. And I think one of the things as well is, if people are thinking maybe doing it or doing anything and going on and wondering, that's what I was sort of thinking. Why should who do you think you are? Sort of putting stuff
Yeah.
up. It's,
What gives you the right?
yeah.
I go
And
through that every
it's not,
day.
yeah. But I think maybe, especially for older people, it was kind of like, because I'm from the era of where you really, if you're going to do something, you're going to do a demo tape, and it was sort of quite an involved thing where you'd go in a studio and do, it sort of meant there was, we need this to get gigs and we don't know that, so it always seemed a very kind of important thing, if you know what I mean, where, so you kind of have that thing, well, why are you doing this? There must be some reason that you want to, and well, there is a reason, and I'm not. You start getting into it, and I don't know. I suppose I do want people to hear it because I could just. Someone said, well, you could just have done it on your computer and then could stay there. What's the difference? So I suppose there is a little bit of that, but it is to feel that you are getting into a bit of a community. Really, I think that was as much as anything, and that's that was great. That. It's something I kind of even didn't really appreciate until I started doing it,
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything wrong with just saying, I want someone to hear it. I want other people to hear this. I want to play this for somebody. I mean, I really do love when a friend comes over and say, here, I made this last night. Check it out. What do you think? That's a thrill,
yeah, I mean, other people are happy to sort of just show their new clothes or whatever. So I don't see difference. Yeah,
we do it every day. We
not?
open our mouth with our opinions. For what's the difference?
Yeah.
We're here to share and interact.
Yeah.
For some reason, I think with our music, and maybe it's an art thing, we feel like pretentious for doing it or something.
I think that's it. Yeah. That's like why I do this sort of. I didn't say just use my own name or anything, and I don't know why, but it's just sort of something. I think I feel a bit more freer doing it with under a pseudonym or whatever. Maybe that might, like yourself, maybe I might feel more confident a bit later on if I keep going. But it's not sort of to be anything special. I don't know why. It's very hard to explain, really. It's a sort of thing, but I think it's, especially if you really do love something. Like, I'm sure all the people listening to this and yourself, love our music, don't we? And I think, I suppose you do kind of judge yourself against what you see as great music, and you think, well, who am I to sort of try and compete with that? But then I played football when I was younger and that, and I didn't want to think that I was comparing myself to Maradona or anyone. Do you see what I mean? You're just doing it as so. You should really do it in that sort of spirit, I think.
Right. It's a good point. You know, when you're young and playing sports, you're doing it because you want to have fun playing sports.
Yeah.
And it's almost like that's not a valid reason anymore as we get a little bit older.
Yeah,
But it's an important reason. It's helped me, I'm sure, be a nicer person to people, to release things, just the energies out of myself and have something that I can do where I forget who I am for a little while, and that's
when
all
you're
important.
You're very, like I said in my thing, I listened back to your very first podcast, and I really sort of kind of got what you were getting at. It was sort of like quite raw, wasn't it? You say, well, I'm just going to do this, and I don't, and that inspired me. It was, I think, most probably you find a lot of the people that follow you now, that's a big part of it. We all love technology and everything and talking about it and that, but there's a great human side to when you talk to people. Do you see what I mean? And I think that appeals to people. And I get a feeling like how you've done it, it's, well, let's just see where it goes. And it's not like you pushed yourself to do, and it's just taken on its own life, hasn't it, really? And it's fantastic,
Yeah. Before I ever started it, I had these like visions and ideas, and I thought it was going to be a lot of things, a lot of segments, and like little. It got too big to do, and I just decided to just try one. It was just one day, really. I had a day, and it was on my mind. And I said, what the hell? What do I need? I need a microphone, and let's just see if I can even do it. And I was surprised to myself that I was able to. And then once I got started speaking with other people, just have
kind
these
of
conversations
as well.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of this, I don't think we get into too much technical stuff very often.
No,
it comes up, but it's more about like the human side of it often.
That's it. Yeah. Definitely.
So, I really enjoy it for that, for myself, almost like as a therapy, share the process and the ups and downs, and to learn from people.
Yeah, and it's a great area, of knowledge for people. I'm not trying to, you're not sending me $20 or anything, but if they haven't heard them all, to go back, it's quite, the guests you've had on are so different, aren't they, in all respects? I know you've had people that have written number ones and top producers and everything, and it's good that you'd have someone like myself, I think, because it shows that you're trying to cover the whole breadth of what making music is, really. It's really good.
There's something to learn from everybody, and everyone comes with their own experiences. And, even somebody that's written like number one songs, there's things you can learn from them, and there's things maybe like they almost forget too about when you're first starting out too. There's a different way of seeing things.
Yes,
that I remember specifically this one time. My grandmother had just gotten a computer, and she wanted to start doing emails. So I told her, okay, so just go over here and click on that icon. And she's like, what? How do I go there? What do you mean click? Like the most fundamental thing of that, if I move the mouse, the cursor on the screen moves. But she didn't know that. So it was just like, oh, okay. So we gotta, I realized at that moment how much information I was assuming was already there, because I've been using computers, for years at that point, and hadn't playing video games. Like I had all this background knowledge that she just had no experience in. So very interesting to like get those different perspectives.
but you also get that from people saying, "Oh, to you, like I'd love to be able to play the guitar," or "I've tried," and as if it's some sort of miracle thing that someone can do it, and if you just pick up anything and it's one little step at a time, and you're saying, you know, suddenly when you look back, you realise how much further you've come. But a lot of the time, it is just having the will to want to do it, you know. And I think with doing this Jamuary thing, it was like, oh God, I'd never done YouTube or anything, you know. So I'd done the first day, and I thought, well, I've got to sort that out now and get it set up and everything. And you know, I was thinking even then, oh, is it worth doing? But you do it, and then after a day or two, you're flicking around on that pretty rapidly, aren't you? Uploading stuff and everything. It's good. Yeah, I'm not pretending that I'm a complete newbie to anything. I mean, I've used the DAWs before, and I played about and tried to put a couple of things on SoundCloud. Is it, you know? So it's it wasn't like I was just starting everything, but this was a really big thing to do 100% for the month, and I produced more music than I've ever done my whole life, really, in that 31 days.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
I love how you
great.
set it up too as a learning experience. So you were going to learn YouTube, you're going to learn how to do this, so that even if the experiment failed, you still got something out of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty clever.
Yeah, it was. I know it sounds I'm banging on about, but it was definitely in my head was I've got to do this every day, otherwise I would have. That's what I feel I would have failed. It was more. It's more like a mental thing for me, not even to do with music. You know, just because I'm not very good at seeing things through. If you know what I mean. I thought, and so I was quite proud that I did that. And a couple of times, it was getting really late at night, and I wanted to try and get it on, you know, before 12 o'clock. But yeah, so that was that was good. And
it proves that you can do it with anything. If you can do it with this, you can do it with anything.
Think so. Or being realistic of what you can and can't do. But I think I set the goal saying, realistically, if I do say that will do it, there's nothing, you know, obviously there could have been some disaster in the meantime, but if things went to plan, I could get to the end of it, you know, and it worked, yeah. My other thing that I think is quite funny, one little thing, is that I got one of my videos taken down by the BBC. It's been blocked.
That's fun.
That's my
so you're causing trouble in the.
I'm
nice.
Like a punk because I might have said I take things off the telly, you know, and it's weird. It's fantastic how they know it because it's just on my phone. I just you know, record on my phone, rewind it, and say, oh, that looks good. It's something to do with satellite dishes and stuff. So yeah, I put that in it, and that was my kind of visual bit, and cut it up a bit and everything.
That's cool.
And then I got a thing saying the BBC of. So I've known, but so I think they must have had a really big meeting in London, and
I think
decided,
so. Yeah.
So,
hey, at least the machines are listening, right?
Yes,
give us a little good feeling.
That's it, so.
John, it was really great talking to you.
I'm
going to have to wrap this one up. But it was awesome to hear like your process and the way you approached it, and it is something to be proud of, and it's really nice that you it's inspiring just that you set out to do something and you put in the time every day and you made it happen.
That's it. And why I wanted to do this, I said just quickly, is you know, if anyone ever is sitting there thinking, oh, should I do it, or why would I do that? You know, just do it, and you know, what's the worst that can happen? You can get someone slag you off or anything, but that's
you don't always have to know the reasons why when you start. Sometimes you learn the reasons after you do it.
Yeah.
And the surprise lessons are sometimes the biggest ones. I've had many of those. Music has taught me many of those things of the value of consistent hard work. probably more so than anything else.
Yeah.
So you never know what you're going to learn, and you never know what you're going to get
No.
out of it.
Yeah, and it's
That's reason enough. It's an adventure.
yes, and I feel like it's going to make me keep going with music in some respect. Whereas I thought those days are gone. You know what I mean? So that's a good thing, really, to just have that going.
So we will put a link in the show notes to your YouTube playlist so people can check that
Yes.
out, right?
Yeah.
Is there anywhere else we can send people so they can see your work and reach
No,
out
I
to you?
think that's
good.
the best place. I've got
Perfect.
if anyone wants, I've got the email, and that's on my the little bit on the top of the YouTube. It's got that on there, MemoryBug Music at Gmail. But if anyone wants to, obviously, but basically that's what it's all about. So
That's great.
I will keep going with stuff and keep it going. So that's it, Brian. Yeah. Thank you very much for your time as well.
Well, thank you, John.
It's great.
I appreciate it. And thank you to everyone listening. Hope you guys have a great day.
Thank you.